What's up, everyone? Welcome into another Talkin Grizz draft edition. We're moving on with our mock draft. We're down to number 11, the Charlotte Hornets. So joining me today is Rod Boone. He's a multimedia journalist who covers the Charlotte Hornets for Sports Illustrated. Welcome into our mock draft. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kelcey. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So happy to have you here. And we have moved down, like I said, to number 11. That means the mock draft, the names are dwindling down. So let's start with the Charlotte Hornets. They've had some luck, I'll say, in the past few years. They got LaMelo last year. They got PJ Washington, we just talked about, at number 12 the year before. Now they're finding themselves kind of in a similar situation. You can get a really great role player in that, 10, 11, 12, 13 draft pick. So what do you think the Charlotte Hornets need? What hole are they looking to fill?
Well, that's a good question, Kelcey. They have two different holes to kind of fill. They have a big man hole because they have a couple of free agents in Bismack, Biyombo, and Cody, Zeller, who most likely, barring something unforeseen, probably won't be back. The team has to figure out the next move there. They drafted a couple of guys second round last year, Vernon Carey Jr. and Nick Richards, who played a little bit this past season, but they both need a little bit of work still. So the Hornets haven't found an answer at the big man just yet. So they could go that route. They could also go with maybe a wing player, somebody kind of help them out a little bit who can help LaMelo Ball, per se, stretch the defense a little bit, because LaMelo obviously is really good at getting to the basket, finding guys. So I think go one of those two routes. But I think if they have somebody there who they really like, I would think probably big man may be the way they would go, because that may be a little bit easier to fill than maybe going a free agent or a trade route.
Yeah, agreed. Looking at the Hornets roster, they have so many talented guards, and not to say that if a really great guard came about, that they wouldn't necessarily take the best talent, but they do have, they have Scary Terry, they have LaMelo, they've got a bunch of guys who are great at that guard spot. They've got a good backcourt. Finding that hole in the middle could be really important. Are there names right now of guys who are centers who they may be interested in?
Well, it's funny. They actually had, Kai Jones from Texas. He's a big man, 6'11", from the Bahamas. Had a decent season at Texas. But he's one of those players. He actually came in yesterday for an individual workout, and I asked him a couple of questions about after the workout about how he feels he would fit with the Hornets. He thinks that he would be a perfect fit for those guys because he knows LaMelo Ball is a pick and roll kind of player, and he feels that pick and roll is kind of one of their strengths, to be able to roll to the basket and get easy buckets. And also, he shot, I think, 38% from three-point range in college last season. So something like that as well as the Hornets need, because they have to find a big man, in my mind, to be able to help them stretch the defense. Again, like the Hornets are going to all be about trying to play with different players, different positions. They want to be what they call, multi-dimensional. They don't want to have one player play one spot if possible. They want to have players be able to play 1 through 4, 1 through 3, 3 through 5, stuff like that. So a player like Kai Jones kind of fits that mold. And also, as you mentioned before, like at this point, last couple of years, Hornets drafting, LaMelo obviously number 3, we put him aside, but they got PJ Washington a couple of years ago, and then 3 years ago they got Miles Bridges. So those are two players who have turned out to be really good first-round picks, right about where they're picking right now. So you figure they can get somebody like that, maybe the Kai Jones, to kind of help in and be a good player a year or two from now. They'd be looking pretty good.
Yeah, and good and young, which you like to see. They can kind of grow together. So names that are still on the board, obviously Jalen Johnson's still on the board, Kai Jones still on the board. This are from Turkey, Alperen Şengün still on the board. So now I'm going to put you on the clock, Mr. Rod Boone. You are picking for the Charlotte Hornets. You're representing the Hornets. Everyone at home, I will put up the graphic. You can see who has already been chosen, who is off the board. So choosing at number 11, who do you got?
Well, let me first say that there's also a possibility that the Hornets could trade their pick. Now, whether or not that happens, I don't know. But being that they're maybe a player or two away from taking that next step, because they were right there in the East this year before injuries hit. The Knicks and Hawks had really good seasons, but the Hornets were right there with them until LaMelo Ball got hurt, and then Gordon Hayward got hurt, and then they kind of just fell apart from about March on because they didn't have enough bodies playing multiple games in a couple of days there. So they could trade maybe the pick and maybe get something better in return. But if they stay with the pick, it could be, again, most players they can possibly develop. It could be, I've seen Franz Wagner out there as one of those guys, possibly. Josh Giddey, a couple of different, guys from overseas could be possibilities because, again, whoever comes in this season may not contribute per se right away. But if they do go with somebody you want to bring in now, I think it could be Kai Jones because, again, 6'11", his skill set. He's one of those players who I've seen and various people who were smarter than me about the draft talk about his intriguing potential because of his length and just his kind of skill set. So not that he's like a Kevin Durant, but I think I saw somewhere where somebody said he may have that kind of, maybe the best player to come out since KD from Texas, something like that. So if you're a Hornets fan and people saying that about this guy, it's kind of a good thing to hear. So if he's around and the Hornets feel like a big man project is something they want to take on to be able to take that next leap with LaMelo and those guys, and it definitely could be a Kai Jones for sure.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. We're going with Kai Jones at number 11 if they don't trade. So I'm going to go really quickly. Let's say they do trade up, like for the sake of our mock draft, there's no trading. You just got to pick. Do you, like in my mind, they go for Evan Mobley then, who's probably the best big in the draft. So do you think they trade with, they have to package something with the Raptors, who are kind of more of like a win now. Maybe they don't want that young guy on the team.
Right. I mean, the only way maybe something like that happens, and I'm not privy to salary stuff, is It depends on what happens with Kyle Lowry, right? Because, maybe Terry Rozier maybe fits in that role because even though Terry is great for Hornets, this is actually the last year of his deal coming up. He got a 3-year contract, so he's going to be playing for big bucks and is up for extension, soon. So it depends on just where the Hornets feel things fit, but they definitely could be active because I feel like Mitch Kupchak has kind of been, at this point, really measured with his moves, but the Hornets are kind of maybe one trade or so away from that next level, be maybe a 4 or 5 seed next year playoff time. So it just all depends on what they're feeling, but they want to, as you said, that could be a possibility for sure. Who knows at this point?
There's a lot up in the air. So this is the exciting part of the off season. So we are less than 10 days away from the draft. So Rod, thank you so much for your time today and your analysis. I appreciate you coming on.
Any problem? No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And Grizzlies fans, you can always get more on grindcitymedia.com.